Hello and welcome once again to another episode of From Unknown to Known. And we're going to dive in and find out what is going to be happening in Genesis chapter 3. We hope you enjoy and like this here video series. In the last video series, we was introduced to a new character called the Lord God. The Lord God was the one who put flesh upon man. He also put a soul in man. Man was a total spirit being like the angels at first, and then the Lord God, or as he's called, the demiurge in Gnostic Christianity. That's Demiurge. You can look that up and Google it, and it talks about it. It's a whole philosophy. Even Plato, the Greek Plato, knew about the demiurge. So this idea floated around long before Christ came on the scene. And this demiurge is called the craftsman because he don't create anything. He don't have the ability to speak things into existence like the Elohim. He only is able to do just like all of us, use material that's already in existence and build or make something. Just like you build a house, a lot of the materials are already found in nature, the wood and so forth that you use to build a home is material already in existence. It's not a creation. A creation is ex nihilo, which means that it comes from out of nothing, out of the void, out of emptiness. It comes out. And God spoke it spiritually. Jesus said, my words are spirit and they are life. And it's the same thing. When the Ein Sof or the Infinite One spoke things into creation, it came through spiritually. This here physical or matter construct, this is the Lord God. And he is also the originator of evil. It's not the devil. The devil is just a fallen archangel, Lucifer. But the Lord God is the originator of evil. And you're going to see that in this text today. So we go here in Genesis 3 and 1. I see the title at the top says the fall of man, but man did not fall in this chapter. He gained a lot in this chapter, and we're going to point those things out. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every fruit, every tree of the garden? Now here, the serpent is lying upon the Elohim. Another thing to point out is that the serpent was subtle. That word subtle means clever or cunning. But in Proverbs, the same word means prudent or cautious. Now, I want you to know this. This is a time when you have to interpret the Bible symbolically. Here we have a symbol that shows up. The symbol is called the serpent. What is a serpent a symbol of? Some people would say evil, but the serpent is the symbol of wisdom. I know we call the owl, the wise owl, the owl as the symbol for wisdom, but the owl is not. The serpent is the symbol for wisdom. Remember, Jesus said in the Gospels to be wise as serpents. He was speaking symbolically, and harmless or innocent as the doves. So we see here that this animal which the Lord God had made. This is not something that the Elohim created. This is a made being, made specifically by the Lord God. And he is wise, a wise creature. Was able to speak. No serpent is able to speak. So we just seeing what the text is saying here is that now wisdom is beginning, is coming. Because wisdom or Sophia is what is needed to gain knowledge. Furthermore, wisdom or Sophia or Chachma, as it's called in the Hebrew, is wisdom. Is one of the sephiros on the tree of life, the highest sephirot on the tree of life. Then you have Bina, and then Da'at. Bina is understanding, and Da'at is knowledge. So we see here a symbol appears, and this symbol is talking. This wise symbol is talking, having dialogue. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest ye die. Now here we go again. If you're made of matter, you're going to die anyway, whether you touch the tree or not. It's just a big lie. It's a big lie. Anything made of matter has to die. Only the spirit don't die. Remember, Jesus said, whatsoever is born of flesh is flesh. Flesh dies. Spirit does not die. Whatsoever born of spirit is spirit. We were spiritual beings, and we were able to conceive and procreate through the female principle spiritually. Now we are limited with these physical bodies. And the physical body is very dense, and it cuts us off from the spirit, where we come from, being close and in communion with the Elohim. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Which is true, and he's talking about the action. The serpent knows that eventually flesh has to die. He already knows that. Whether they touch the tree or not, it doesn't matter. But he's looking at what the woman said previously, saying that if we eat of it or touch it, we're going to die. And the serpent was giving her insight and light and saying, you're not. You're born of flesh. Flesh don't last long. Flesh is temporary. Only the spirit is eternal. So this in a lot of us in religions and present day theology look at this as, well, the reason why we died because Eve ate off the tree and Adam ate off the tree too and all this other kind of stuff. That's hogwash. Hogwash. That don't make any kind of logical sense. Logical sense. Anything in matter, in the material world, it comes to an end, it perishes. It goes away, it rots, it goes into decay, it goes back into the dirt, into the dust. So this, it's a lot of lies. The Lord God created lies. He is the father of all lies, not the devil. We can't blame the Lord God, so we just blame the devil. He is the father of all lies. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. He was telling the truth. He was saying, you will die, but you won't die from touching or eating this here fruit. Now we go to verse 5, and the serpent goes on to say, for God doesn't know that in the day ye eat thereof, he's talking about the Lord God. He's not talking about the Elohim, even though the text just has Elohim. Elohim. The Elohim never put these type of restrictions on the on Adam. He never did. He didn't do that. He wouldn't care less if you ate it or not, because eventually you're gonna die. You know, the Elohim knew that after his creation fell into the hands of the Lord God. And notice what it said. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also to unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Now let's look at this here verse. First, the woman saw that the tree was good for food. Stop right there. Not everything in this here world is good for food. Meat is not good for food. Milk, dairy products is not good for food. Well, unless it's human milk, but I'm talking about from the cow. It was intended for the cow, not for human consumption. But you have even stuff in the vegetable kingdom. Sumac, nightshade, you know, it grows, but if you take it, you're going to die. So she looked at this here tree and said that there's no harm that can come to me. It's good for food. It's not evil food or bad food that would kill you like poison. That it was pleasant to the eyes. You know, it made her hungry. She looked upon it and it made her hungry. Just like if you saw a beautiful dish and a French chef or whatever laid it out before you, it looks so good, you ready to dive into it. Sometimes you don't feel like eating it. The plate looks so good. But it looked good. And then finally, the tree was one desired to make one wise. And I remember they talk about the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh and the pride of life and all this other kind of stuff. Don't break this down like that. This is just a normal discourse. We all go through this here, and it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. Food that's not gonna hurt you is not bad. You know, if we that's how we are. You know, we like to see beautiful things. We like to see stuff nice. Nothing is wrong with that. And she took the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also to her husband, and he did eat. And the eyes of both of them were open. Now look what happened after this happened. And they knew they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Now, the eyes of both of them were open. Now they had a big flash of knowledge. Knowledge. What is the eyes known for? The eyes are known for receiving light. If we lived in a dark world where there's no light, there would be no need for eyes. Light is what makes vision possible. Light makes vision possible. And that's another symbol in the Bible, all throughout the Bible. When it speaks of light, it means information. If you notice, anytime an angel appeared, they talk about a bright light shone all around. What that indicates is that that angel, who is also the bender of light, they are called the angles. Angle. We just switch the letters back and forth and call it an angel, but it's an angle. like a right angle or whatever, or 45-degree angle. What they do is they bend light, like a light beam. They beam light or information in certain directions to certain people. So that's what happens. It is a symbol. Light is the symbol for information. Information is about ready to be passed on. And here, the light shone on them. They had knowledge. They gained knowledge. They gained wisdom at this point. And they realized that they were naked. What the Lord God wanted Adam and Eve to continue in is ignorance. Ignorance is associated with darkness. In our history, in our world history, there was a time called the Dark Ages. This is before the Renaissance. There was a period when everybody, most people on the planet, had no knowledge, no kind of education, nothing. It was called the Dark Ages. The Renaissance happened when the people rediscovered the ancient writings of the ancient Greeks. That's when the Renaissance came, when they read the poetry and Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle's philosophical writings. Then all of a sudden, a light. You can say the people's eyes were open during the Renaissance. All it means is information. Living in ignorance, like most people in today's society, they live in ignorance. And one of the things about the Gnostic Christians, they emphasize gnosis or knowledge. And it was basically saying, through knowledge of self, you can know God. You got to remember that Jesus said in the Gospels, "Depart from me, ye workers of iniquity, I never knew you." The only access to God is through knowledge. Knowing yourself, connecting, knowing yourself intimately, getting to know yourself. And through that, you have access to God. Because we're all one in the same spirit. We tied into God. But what's happening is that we are cut off. We're cut off. We're in these here dense bodies that make it hard, very impossible, very difficult to have communion with the Most High, with the Elohim. And so what the serpent did, he did them a favor. He did Adam and Eve a favor. And when they ate of that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, he said that you will be like gods. In other words, you'll be able to make decisions. You'll be able to rule and govern yourself and to use your mind. This Adam and Eve was basically like animals. Their spirit was cut off. In the book of Daniel, we see what happens when a person has no spirit, when their spirit is taken away from them. Like Nebuchadnezzar. He lived out the field and he became an animal or an animal man because his spirit was taken away. And when your spirit is taken away, that's what happens. You live like an animal. You look at today's society and we're going more and more and more animal, which proves and shows the point that we're cut off. We're more separated and divided from spirit than ever before. So their eyes were open. The serpent said that ye shall be like gods, knowing good and evil, knowing how to separate that. Adam and Eve was living in a world of differentiation where they didn't know night from day, east from west, north from south, hot from cold. They didn't know none of that stuff because they lived in total ignorance. And that's why the Gnostic Christians emphasize knowledge. And whatever knowledge or whatever light that you use to open your eyes with, that's good. But consider the source, because some knowledge is bad. It's not all good. So you have to watch what you take in. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. The sun was going down. Now the text is correct by saying the Lord God. At first it was talking about the Elohim in the other chapters, and those were just lies. The Elohim had nothing to do with that knowledge of the tree of the good and evil. That's something that the Lord God had planted in the Garden of Eden. And remember, he made the man to work his garden. He was lazy. He didn't want to work himself. So he created Adam to work the garden, do garden work. I don't know what type of compensation he was getting. I guess all of the fruit he could eat. And God said, and the Lord God said unto Adam, the spiritual man, the man who was created directly with the Elohim, not the woman. The woman was not, the woman that we know now on this earth is not an Elohim creation. Only males. Only males, not women. Women are made by the Lord God. I'll repeat that again. The first female, her name is Lilith, she divorced herself from her husband, which is Adam. And also Adam, that's the name that was given to him when he became animal man or human. When he was spirit man, he was mankind. He was mankind. He wasn't human. He became human or animal man or H-U-E man after the Lord God formed his body from the dust of the ground and animated this body with a soul. That's when he became Adam or the human. Because in the first chapter of Genesis, it said, and he made them male and female. Spirit beings, total spirit beings. And so the Lord God called unto Adam and said, where art thou? When I was in theology school, this passage gave a lot of theologians problems. They would ask the question and say, well, I thought the Lord God was omniscient, all-knowing. God is omniscient, all-knowing. What's happening here? If you know that this is a different character and not the Ein Sof or the Eternal One or the Elohim in Genesis 1, you'll make this mistake in interpretation. The Lord God is not all-knowing. He has limited knowledge. He don't know anything. You can hide yourself from the Lord God just like Adam did. He wouldn't know where you're at. The only time he knows where you're at is when you appearing before him, worshiping him. Then he knows where you're at. But this Lord God is not omniscient. His knowledge is limited. His knowledge is limited. So he asks, where are you? In other words, Adam is around and he's looking for him. And Adam usually was in his presence, worshiping him, no doubt. This time, he's looking for the honor and the worship. And he's like, I wonder why Adam is not doing what he's supposed to do or normally does. Worshiping me. Where art thou? And then he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and hid myself. He was really afraid of the punishment. You're going to see how fear makes cowards of us all. You're going to see how fear just kind of like turns the story sideways, if you will. You know, I noticed that even in movies and in television shows, the drama is not locked in until somebody becomes afraid of a situation or afraid of a person or some kind of fear pops in. Then that element of drama springs in. But if you notice that, watch any type of, even some comedies, but any type of drama, the drama or the story is not locked in until somebody is afraid of something or someone or some situation. Somebody afraid of losing their husband, the drama is locked in. And then now we find out that the woman is doing everything she can to spare her husband's life. And as the story takes off, and you see, you learn how she did it or how she failed to do it. You know, it's the same thing here. Now we have a real dramatic situation happening where fear is taking hold. And this is what the Lord God feeds off of. He feeds off of fear. He is kept alive by fear. He wants you to fear him, to be afraid of him. I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. I hid myself. Then he said, who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree which I commanded thee not, that thou shouldest not eat? Yeah. He wanted to keep them in ignorance, with their eyes blinded, with no knowledge. It's just like a baby. A baby's mind is not developed. His spirit is not, his spirit is there in his body, but it has not developed yet. When his spirit starts ascending and developing in his fleshly body, now he gains a memory. I remember when my spirit took over. Eventually it'll take over as a child ages. And he learns language. He learns how to talk and all of that. And he's putting words together and laughing and repeating certain and doing certain acts and walking. That's when his mind is taken over. But a baby is born that way. No knowledge, just plain ignorance. And here we have some adults, grown people who were ignorant. And the man said, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. Now, here we have Adam having righteous indignation against the Lord God. And rightfully so. He's basically saying right here, I would have been better off by myself without this here woman that you made. Because you got to remember, Adam did not make a request to the Lord God, Lilith left me and I'm suffering divorce and, I miss having a woman around. Make me a woman. Make me a help meet. No, the Lord God took it upon himself to do this so that the man can be hampered in his spirituality, an obstacle, a stumbling block in his spirituality. So he rightfully has righteous indignation. I ain't asked you to make this here wife for me, this woman for me, but you did, and she was a better comfort to me than my first wife. And I really want to think that Adam ate of the tree because he believed that they were going to die after they eat it, just instantly fall dead. And he didn't want to be alone. He was like, kind of like the Romeo and Juliet story, or Othello and Desdemona in the Shakespeare plays, where the people that they love so much, they don't want to be alone without them. They don't want to live on without them. And so that's what was running through the mind of Adam. He just he didn't want to go through not having Lilith leave, and then he found one that's at least a little bit more submissive and not having a women's women's liberation attitude toward him. There's no doubt he loved Eve. So we see here in the Lord God, after Adam accused the Lord God, he was really angry. He was upset, saying, I wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for this person that you made for me. Verse 13, and the Lord God said unto the woman, what is this thou hast done? Now the woman gonna start lying. The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. The serpent did not trick her. She knew that the serpent helped her, because now they have wisdom shone upon them, and through that wisdom came understanding and knowledge, and they knew that they were naked. Verse 14, and the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and every beast of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go and shalt eat. Thou shalt eat dust all the days of thy life. This serpent walked upright like the gecko lizard in the Geico commercials. But now it has to go upon his belly. That's a light sentence right there, really light. It wasn't really harsh. But verse 15 is a real kicker. Pay attention and listen to this. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. What is the seed of a woman? I can hear y'all saying, man, women don't have seed. Only men have seed. You got to remember that we as human beings, we start off androgynous. That means we have both sexual characteristics until later on in the mother's womb, the sexual characteristics show up, where the doctor with the ultrasound could say, hey, I see a boy in there. Oh, hey, I could see a girl in there. But both the man and the female have seed. What determines the sex of the child is which one goes or gives up the seed first. Anytime a woman gives up her seed first before the man, when they're having sexual intercourse, it's going to be a male. It's going to be a male. The seed of the woman is a male. The seed of a man is a female. They always generate the opposite. You have some women that have all sons, 3 sons or whatever the number is. That means every time she got pregnant, she gave up the seed first. Then you have some men that have just girls, I remember they had this story about the bricklayer's daughters and stuff like that. He was a bricklayer, the last bricklayer that went to the schools that Booker T. Washington founded in Virginia. And the story was that he was the last bricklayer, and he had nothing but daughters. And he sent them all through colleges and stuff. But this particular man, every time he had sexual intercourse with his wife, he gave the seed up first. Now, I want you to know that this is a curse that the Lord God placed upon the woman. And this curse came into being. There was a time, according to Dr. Delbert Blair in his Man lecture, which is on YouTube. Go to the Meta Center or just do a search on YouTube, Dr. Delbert Blair, the Man lecture. And in that lecture, he talks about how males had a hard time coming to this planet or being born. It just was a bunch of women. Because this curse that the Lord God had placed upon the woman was for her seed, which was the male. Now imagine a world where there's no males. How can the women give birth? Humanity would die out. But this is how dirty and mean the Lord God is. Dr. Delbert Blair said males had a hard time getting to this planet, but guess what happened? The Elohim, the infinite, the Ein Sof, would not want his creation to die out, even though the Lord God had screwed everything up. Later on in Genesis, it talks about how the sons of God saw the daughters of men and took all upon them of whom they chose. And into the earth was born giants, or the Nephilim. The Nephilim are the sons of God. The sons of God are still with us today. They're just in hibernation. They sleep. There have been reports of giant sightings like in Pakistan and in the Middle East. They're really suppressing that information. But when the sons of God wake up, as Dr. Delbert Blair says, it's gonna really be a showdown. The Lord God is gonna use his power, and he's gonna lose his power and his hold that he had over this here earth for a long time. They're gonna return. They will return. But yes, this curse was placed upon the female seed, and men had a hard time coming into it. And not all curses last forever. Curses are temporary. They wear off over time. You have to have somebody to keep it enforced by doing the ritual over again. There's this story about an Indian chief who was killed, I want to say like in 1836 or 1837. The white man killed him, and before he died, he placed the curse upon the white man, and he said that in every year where there's a zero and a president is elected, someone is elected president in those years, they will not live to fulfill their term, to finish their term in office. And in 1840, that curse began. William Henry Harrison, he was only in office for maybe like 6 months. He went to a 4th of July picnic or whatever. And back then, in those days, they had open sewers. And he was eating a hot dog or some type of meat, and a fly lit on it, and it had some fecal matter on the fly, and he ate it, and he got sick, really sick, and he died. Fast forward, 1860. We all know what happened to Abraham Lincoln. Fast forward, 1880. James Garfield was shot. Fast forward, 1900. President William McKinley was shot as he exited the subway or the bus in Buffalo, New York. Fast forward, 1920. Warren Harding, President Harding, died mysteriously. Some people believe that he was poisoned by his mistress. He had a wife, but he had another woman on the side in the office. A lot of women viewed him as a very handsome man, so he had a lot of ladies, but they believe that one of those ladies poisoned him. Fast forward, 1940, FDR, although he did survive the 4 years from 1940, we can see where the curse is kind of wearing off a little bit. He was elected in 1940, but he didn't pass away until I think 1945. He passed away after he had gained the presidency for the 4th time. But he was the same person that was elected in 1940. So he passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. He couldn't finish the 4th term. Then that's when they made the amendment to say that only presidents can serve 2 consecutive terms. They term limited the president so that he won't, I guess, don't die in office. All right, fast forward, 1960. We all know what happened with FDR. I mean, not FDR, JFK. Fast forward, year 1980. Who was president? It was Ronald Reagan. What happened to him? He got shot. But guess what? He survived his wounds. The curse wore off. Is to know it wore off. Is not like eternal or forever. It wears off. You know, just like a lot of people believe that Ham and his descendants are cursed to this day. That's not true. All curses are temporary unless you have somebody to reinforce the energy dies out on the curse over time unless you have somebody to reinforce that energy and put it back in effect. So here we see that the Lord God placed the curse upon the woman having a male child. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and your desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall have rule over thee. A lot of people want to whitewash that verse, but that's what he said. And it's true today. Women go through a lot of pain. In metaphysical circles, they have a pain uh, consciousness or awareness that many women, as they go through childbirth and a monthly cycle, the pain they go through goes into this collective uh, consciousness, and that's the reason why women uh, feel these monthly pains and stuff like that because of this situation here. But some women don't go through this. Some women don't have menstrual pain and cramps. Some women give birth to children easily. I never forget. I heard a story about a woman who took a taxi. This is back before Uber, and nobody knew she was pregnant. She didn't know she was pregnant. She had no morning sickness and all that. Her stomach didn't get big or nothing. But she back in the taxi, and the baby just slid out with no problem. So this this curse is not for all time, and it's not for all women. There are some women. Another thing too, you have to listen to the woman lecture by Dr. Delbert Blair. Also, you have to listen to that because it talks about all of this type of stuff about how women can conceive. Little do you know, asexually. All that has to happen is the eggs have to break because the seed is inside the egg of the woman. All it has to do is break. But that's a whole nother discussion. But like I say, Dr. Delbert Black goes into detail about that, and you can find information just through a search. Dr. Delbert Black, a woman's lecture, and you will be blown away of what he said. A lot of stuff is pretty much over my head and hard to digest, but nevertheless, it's a good lecture. Verse 17, and unto Adam he said, because thou hast listened to the voice of your wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, and in sorrow thou shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. Now, that curse was in effect, but guess when that curse came to an end? When Noah, that's right, the one who was in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights, Noah was the world's first engineer. He designed the plow so that man did not have to grub with his hand, and because his hands was all blistered up. He couldn't eat because as he was using his hand to make furrows in the ground, his hand would hurt. So it was difficult for him to eat. But like I said before, curses are temporary. They don't last forever. They're only broken either when they fade out or wear out in time, or if somebody that's smart have a solution on how to circumvent that curse. And Noah did that. And we might touch on that a little later on. We may look at some of the stuff, the Ark of the Covenant. I think I'll do that a little later. The Ark rather, not the Ark of the Covenant, but the Ark. In the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread till thou return unto the ground. For out of whence thou wast taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. I don't know why he's saying that, but I believe he's saying that because Adam lived in total ignorance. He didn't know where he come from. He didn't even know that he was going to die. He lived in total ignorance. The Lord God was able to tell Adam anything, and he would be gullible enough to believe it. So the Lord God told him a bunch of lies to keep him in the dark. That's real deceptive. That's terrible. And then notice what he says. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, or Kava, because she was the mother of all living. Now this is what I call, again, a general statement. It seems like it's out of the sequel order of what's happening. But this is just a general statement, meaning sometimes, somewhere along the line, it could have been before the fall or after the fall. It doesn't matter. It's out of sequence. He probably called her name Eve the day the Lord God presented it to her. It doesn't mean that after the garden, then that's when he gave her the name. You know, after the fall, the so-called fall, he gave her a name. That's what we call a generalized statement, because it's out of sequence with the flow of the narrative of the Bible. And the Bible is full of those. Verse 21, unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skin and clothe them. Now, a lot of theologians say this is when we got our bodies. This is not when we got our bodies. These are literal, it's coats of skin. It's what it is. You know, if it's bare skin, then it's bare. You know, if a goat, the hide of a goat, you know, that's what it is. You know, and clothe them. It's what it literally is. It doesn't mean that they got bodies. We're not wearing coats of skin. We're wearing dust that the Lord God has made. That's what we're wearing. That's what houses us. When we put on our clothes, we're putting on the coats of skin. Your pants, whether they made of cotton or gabardine or whatever fabric, that's the coat of skin. Even if it's polyester, it doesn't come from an animal, it's synthetic. That's the coat of skin. And the Lord God, verse 22 said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, so here it is, right here again. We find that the serpent told the truth. He told the truth. He didn't lie. He told Eve that he knows that the moment that ye eat thereof, ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And here the Lord God has to admit, he finally admitted, yep, he's like us. He has wisdom. He has knowledge. I'm foiled again in my plan to keep them in ignorance, because this darn serpent which I've made gave him the 411 on the situation. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. In other words, man was able to go back and return back to his spiritual state. What happened was that the after going to the tree of life, the body would have dissolved, would have burned up, and we would have returned to spirit beings. But the Lord God did not want that. We got to realize that the tree of life is also the 10 Sephiros. In the Kabbalah, it talks about that. That's the tree of life. So he's like, nope, we don't want him to go back to being a spirit being. We want him to stay forever bound in his flesh with this soul that wars against the spirit, where he can't do what he should do, and that is return to the Most High God, to the Elohim. Therefore, this is real important, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all get this. Therefore, the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he came. Y'all get that? Did y'all get that? Y'all want me to read it again? Therefore, this is a concluding statement, a summary of everything that went before. Therefore, after all of this, what the serpent done, what Eve has done, what Adam has done, the Lord God sent him. Well, what about the her? Does it say her in the verse? Is her in the text? Sent him forth from the Garden of Eden. You gonna work for me, man. That's what you gonna do. You was doing it before, but now I want your hands to be blistered up. I put a curse on the ground. Now here's the final verse. 24. So he drove out the man and the woman. Is that in the text? I know what y'all saying. Y'all mind exploding right now. Well, I saw all the drawings and the paintings from the artists and Michelangelo and Gether and all of these illustrators that show that you have God pointing his finger and the serpent is in the tree and all of that kind of stuff, and both of them walking in shame naked out of the garden. That is a lie. That's just an artist's conception. That is not what the text is saying. The text says, so he drove the man, not the woman. He drove the man out. So therefore, Adam experienced divorce again. He don't have his wife. Ain't that like the Lord God? Give you something, then take it away. We got this contradictory saying, the Lord give it and the Lord take it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. How can you give blessing to somebody that gives you something and then take it back? It meant that he didn't want you to have it in the first place. That's just plain good old logic in finding out the truth, as logic does. Logic helps you determine what is true and what is false. And those words are contradictory. If somebody say, I've taken medicine that was designed to save my life, but you die, then you can't make that statement. The medicine wasn't designed to save your life. That's a contradictory statement. It doesn't follow from what actually happened. And he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword to turn every which way of the tree of life. So he put some guards up there. We're going to look at cherubims because they're a special type of angel. We're going to look at the definition of that. And notice it said in the east, that's symbolic of the sunrise. And it's also symbolic of the direction in which most buried people face. They face the east. I know a lot of some cemeteries, they just had a body's helter skelter, but ideally all bodies are supposed to face the east, be buried with the head facing the east toward the rising sun. So that's all for this. We're going to summarize real quick. We find out that the serpent is the symbol of wisdom. He's not a bad guy in this, or a bad creature in this chapter as we had thought, as we had been taught. He actually helped Eve. He actually helped Adam. When they ate of the fruit, they gained knowledge. They became aware of what was going on around them. They became as gods, knowing good and evil. In other words, they achieved a level of spirituality that was shrouded by them having been in those physical bodies. And then we find out that the Lord God comes and he lies to them. He lies about the sentences that he gave them. He said, didn't I tell you not to touch the tree? You're going to die. You're going to die anyway. We don't die because of what Adam and Eve done. We die because we're immortal flesh. We're not spirit. We are spirit to a certain degree, but we mostly soul. The only way we can fan our spirit, which is the spark in us, is to gain knowledge of ourselves, know who we are, and through knowledge of ourselves, we're able to tap in and have access to the Most High, to the Elohim. We find out in conclusion that the Lord God kept the woman and he let the man go free. The Lord God just hates men. Just like today, the male principle of what masculinity stands for is under attack today. And I believe the only reason why it's like that is because so many people are still bowing down and worshiping the Lord God instead of the Elohim, the creator of the heavens and the earth. That's all I have this time for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, ask questions in the bottom. I'll try to answer them. I know this topic is very controversial. As I said in my disclaimer, this is for education purposes only. I'm not putting down any type of religion. I'm not raising up or exalting any type of religion. And I'm not trying to establish any type of new religion. This is for education purposes only.